How we doing? All right. Good.
Last week, you started with, what game records to record game. You certainly had one. And I know, not every sack was different, right?
Yeah.
The first one's a stunt.
Yeah.
Picked up.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, he's a really good football player who, as I said last week, had developed a pretty mean spin move in the offseason. Really tough matchup for any tackle in the NFL. And at the end of the day, the guy's going to be productive. We obviously would have liked him to be a little bit less productive than he was. We got to help those guys in some of those situations, but that doesn't just rest solely on that right tackle at all. I mean, the guy has 4.5 sacks in the book, but 2 of them were at the right tackle, and one of them was my fault. So at the end of the day, he's gonna get his, and we have to learn from it and be able to move on.
Lance, the touchdown right after they had taken the lead, but the end of that drive is back-to-back Baker runs.
Yeah.
And the second one is a call run.
Right.
Ask you about that sequence and your confidence to go back to him after 11 yards.
That was a huge drive for us. From an offensive and team standpoint, right? Like having each other's backs and playing off of one another, where they go down, take the lead, we go down, put a good drive together, and go down. And Baker makes a great play off of a scramble. I was a little hesitant to call the play at the time just because I figured he might be a little out of breath, but I also knew he would be a little juiced up and have some energy flowing. Didn't really think that they would maybe expect that at that moment. That was a call that we looked at as a staff that we really liked, kind of inside the, in the 10 and in. Called it I think at the 11-yard line. They ended up doing the exact defense that we prepared for, and had the exact look that we were hunting up. And Bake actually, he ended up trying to make it. He ended up trying to go and get himself hit, and then he got back into the wave and made a great play.
For you as a play caller, philosophically, like we saw you chipping out there and stuff, trying
Yeah.
to slow Hutchinson down, and Kate Otten actually had some good blocks on it as well. But like, I know you didn't bring in an extra offensive lineman.
Yeah.
Obviously, that impacts Baker's ability to do what he needs to do down the field. But like for you, at what point would you consider doing that, or is that just really kind of not in your
First and second down, I would. First and second down, we would maybe bring in an extra tackle. The problem is on third down, you bring them in, you're writing a memo to the defense that you don't have an eligible. So they only have to, and it was hard enough on Sunday with us using our tight end and chipping, and now only getting 3 out in the concept, and they're playing top-down coverages. Well, you're not getting into the defense, right? Like you're not threatening the defense at all. So that was a challenge. I would definitely use a jumbo type player on first and second down if we felt like it was going to truly give us an advantage in play pass protection specifically, and in the run game as well.
And also, how much of Baker's ability, because you look at even like the numbers of what he's been able to do under duress this year.
Yeah.
It's a small sample size, but like he's been really successful and very accurate when under duress,
Right.
more so than in previous years. So
Yeah.
does that also factor in your decision? Like, hey, you know what?
Right.
We can kind of ride this one out a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, you don't want to be in that situation as much as possible. We'd like to be clean. We'd like to have as many pockets look like a 7-on-7 rep, but that's just not the reality of an NFL pocket. We need to clean things up. We need to be better inside. We need to be better as a group. But what he provides and what he's doing right now is a little bit that's hard for the defense, right? That's a little bit demoralizing for a defense where you feel like you're getting home on a pressure. You might have an edge on an offensive lineman, and he's about to get home, and then he makes a play and gets out of it and ends up scrambling to either keep his eyes down the field and make some throws or use his legs as a weapon. As a play caller, that's really nice to have because you don't necessarily always have to be perfect because he's going to be a football player and make it right.
On the touchdown to Godwin, was that a specific wrinkle in the game plan where there was a lot of screens in week 1, so you could get the defense to bite on that a little bit and then hit Godwin on the wheel?
That was exactly what it was, yeah. So we threw some of those like kind of bubble-ish screens and just kind of whipping those out. We used Bucky as some eye candy on that play and just kind of faked it to him and got Chris on the fake block essentially to just get the defense's eyes a little bit dirty. That was exactly what it was. That was the whole point of the design, so good call.
Why do you think Chris has been so efficient? I mean, almost every target has resulted
Yeah.
in the catch and big play.
He's been that way, right? Like he's been practicing that way. He's been preparing that way. You should see him in meetings. You should see him, like whenever an offensive coach gets up and speaks in front of our unit, Chris Godwin's taking notes. We do a run game meeting on Friday, and Coach Carberry's up there talking about how we're going to attack the defense in the run game, and Chris Godwin is like on the edge of his seat paying attention, taking notes, and then we'll come and ask questions. That's how involved and engaged Chris Godwin is. So it's no surprise. It's kind of what we've expected a little bit of him. I think his expectations are there, and it's really good to see because of how good a person and how much of a pro he is.
Why have him and Baker been so good on the scramble drill?
Man, we haven't worked it all that much either. I mean, we've talked about it.
Surprising.
It is, yeah. It's hard to simulate in practice because, well, the quarterback's not live. More times than not in practice, you're trying to throw within the timing and rhythm of the play. And so you don't get a ton of ops. Like we present about it. We show the guys clips of scramble drill. We have scramble rules on where guys are supposed to go within the concept and where they go if it is a scramble to the right or the left. But those guys are that's just guys being a football player. They're being football players, and their natural instincts kick in. And he's been able to find them. I don't really know.
There were one or two cases where some wideouts were running very similar routes next to each other. Was that sort of to create traffic intentionally, or was that more of a miscommunication?
That was just a miscommunication. That was on the interception you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a play where Chris was supposed to be a little bit shallower. Mike was supposed to be a little bit higher. We caught alert coverage. We talked about not, wanting to run that play potentially. Then we talked about it and wanted to run the play. They had a perfect coverage, made a good play.
As you look to game plan against the Broncos this week, you mentioned Aiden Hutchinson being a challenge, but Zach Allen will also be a challenge. He has 13 pressures in the first 2 games.
Yeah.
How do you look to game plan and stop him?
Yeah, really good player. Actually recruited him a little bit. Remember, he's from Connecticut, went to Boston College, Northeast kid or guy at this point now in his life. Really good player. Have a ton of respect for him. Active, uses his hands extremely well. We've got to do a great job when we cover him up. The other thing that he does extremely well that I think is taken for granted is his batted passes. He's got one of the highest amount of tipped and batted passes in the NFL over the last 3 years. When we have them, we have got to stay locked on him. We've got to drive him. We've got to chop him with our hands. We've got to use a ton of different techniques and using our toolbox to get his hands down in the pass game while also we have to get removal on him in the run game.
When you look at the trend that's kind of been developing early this season of kickers hitting a 95% clip on field goals beyond 50 yards, is there, and I know you prefer touchdowns to field goals, but at the same time, is there some sort of comfort knowing that as soon as you cross midfield, 45-yard line, you're at least going to whip some points?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in the moment I don't really feel that way. Looking back at it now, yes, I would say that I didn't really probably pay attention to our special teams units as much as I should have, knowing how good he is. Yeah, it's frustrating anytime you don't score. But I would say the second drive of the game where we went negative, we go backwards for 3 consecutive plays almost, and then we hit the screen to Godwin, to Chris, that gets us in plus territory. That was a huge play in that game, actually, where those guys executed the screen, almost to perfection. He almost scores, but it got us into field goal range. So anytime you can get points, it's good, but at the end of the day, field goals aren't going to win you a lot of games. We can't play like that and play like that in the red zone and not finish those scores in those drives, not with touchdowns, and expect to win a lot of games.
How would you say that your running game is right now? It's a short sample size.
We got to get it back on track. I think that there was flashes in week 1. I think we played against 2 pretty solid run defenses. I would say the 2 interior guys in Washington are really solid around the NFL. They got Bobby Wagner, who's still a good run defender. But last week, what's that, one of the top 5 rush defenses in the NFL? Not where we want to be, not what we want to do. A number of times, we did a great job handling the noise from a penalty standpoint. It affected us in the run game on Sunday. We had at least 3 or 4 miscommunications up front. Detroit played in, 8 different front structures, on normal down and distance. So you got a guy in your gap on this play, and then the next play he's over here, and the communication. We had a few of those, and then I'll be honest, we missed some runs at the end of the game. We missed 2 runs at the end of the game. That in a game like that, where you need to extend drives and run the football to close out a game the way we want to be able to close out a game, we can't miss those runs.
Anything else? All right, thank you.
Cool. Thanks, guys.